you for inviting me. I know I have only 10 minutes, so I'll be real brief. One of the things that came up when HTA started becoming heated discussion at the legislature and about its funding was, how does it really benefit our local community? And when we look at all the top management with all the hotels, do we see locals? You know, one of the things Kalani talked about is it starts with locals, but we need more locals in top management throughout the industry. And somehow the state is putting a lot more dollars into, or putting dollars into tourism and tourism marketing. We want to make sure that we have pathways for our local residents to rise to the top of the industry. And so that became an issue. Another issue became, what do we do for tourism in our communities? So I'm from Wahiawa, you know, there's Waipahu, there's Wailua. We don't necessarily hear from those communities and say, hey, we want tourism. We want to make sure that they get their funding. We don't hear that. There's a big disconnect, I think, between a lot of our communities and the industry. So one of the things working with MUFI and working with different community leaders are how do we build capacity within the community? So how do we teach someone to do event planning so that they can charge for an event in their community, whatever the cultural or meaningful event is? How do we get it so that they could do tours in their community, historic tours, whatever the case? How do we build capacity and teach our students how to have a business plan, how to do the marketing, how to actually have the tours so that they can have tourists in their community. It doesn't matter if it's Wahiawa, Wailua, Kahuku, Hawaii. The HTA, the tourism industry can build capacity working with our rural communities throughout the state. So this is an effort to try to do that. This is just for your own information. I think you probably went over it before. We did, and Sylvia mentioned it yesterday, that there is $60 million in the base budget. We worked with HTA throughout the session, and the Economic Development Chair, Glenn Wakai, on making sure that they have the positions that they need as well. This is very disappointing for many of us, that if this is a #1 destination, Hawaii does not have the #1 travel industry management school, not even the top 5. So what do we have to do to get that going? It's very difficult, I think, for many of us to start working directly with Manoa. So how do we do these pathways, working with Manoa, community college, and then the high schools? Many of you heard of dual credit or early college. These are things, as long as we can coordinate, we can get a whole pipeline going, and then that way the industry can get in early with our students. So this is what we funded. You know, there's lots of conversations with different industries. With MUFI and I also met with the Department of Labor, the Department of Education, and our community colleges, and your board. So for Department of Labor, we added 7 positions and over $5 million for workforce development. So 300 of those positions are for actually paid internships that the state is going to pay for. So working with our industry partners, we can get community college students, high school students, they can go through an application, we work with you as a partner, and the state will end up paying for those interns. 30 of those interns, additional 30 is specifically for high school students. There's additional costs, but one of the things that I think is interesting is the $108,000. So I'm sure MUFI must have told this story before, but we had a conversation like this a while back, especially when Chris Tatum was the executive director. And I asked her the same thing, challenging him, how do we get more locals into top management within tourism? So MUFI worked out something with Chris. They were able to do a couple scholarships. It was successful. They picked students from different places all around the state. And so we're trying to formalize this. This is enough money for 4 full scholarships. Room and board, tuition, books. So we're hoping that that's something that can be formalized. Working with Keith Hayashi, we're already trying to identify a high school or high schools that can be a tourism academy or hospitality academy that can feed into community college and that can feed into either the workforce or to the university. So the community college right now, they're trying to do an assessment of the different types of programs and certificate programs, degrees that they have so they can do something more formal. Okay, so this is the one that I think is really important. We have something similar for IT, where it could be cyber, it could be database management, it could be networking. We know the certificates that you need and the credentials that you need. So working backwards, a community college is going to do the training so that you can get those certificates. So as we're brainstorming, this is still a work in progress because we're still having to have conversations with your organization, probably HTA, the DOE, and community colleges, are what are going to be the specific pathways at the community college level. So these are things that I wanted to make sure are in, because those are things I mentioned about that will help our rural communities throughout the state. But from the industry perspective, it could be retail management, housekeeping, executive management, marketing, whatever the case, whatever you guys end up deciding is what the industry needs, then we can put that in this grid as far as pathways and work backwards in identifying the certificates, the curriculum, establish the internships, so that we can really have a clean pathway. For you, if you get the intern, you know that that's a future employee if they do well. So it starts feeding the workforce. This is what I'm talking about. This is Waikiki, but if you take this same photo or same type of image across the state, so that you could have someone doing a tour in their community. And this is something that my office did as an example. So we came up with a historic trail for Wahiawa. And as people try to look for a more authentic experience, and it's awkward because we do see, when before COVID, there were Japanese visitors getting off the bus, walking around. But there was nothing to really capture them. They actually wanted to go into a neighborhood that wasn't touristy, that actually had some survey. And so we came up with this chart of different places, and we can emulate what Waikiki did with the surfboards throughout the state. There's lots of communities that have lots of different history. But the student is going to need training on how to put this together, how to do the business plan, how to give a tour, all of those type of things. Anyway, in a nutshell, that's where we're headed. Your support is critical, because if not, our students are not going to have a landing pad. So we need you so that you can support the effort so that we can grow our workforce. So thank you.